Hey guys, so it officially sort of feels like fall in Southeast Texas. It's 69 degrees right now, so I guess it's in the 60s, barely. Um, and that's after it's been windy and rainy all morning. So I'm absolutely certain that after a few days the temperatures are going to spike back up to summer filling weather. But we do have a few days of rain, which means we're going to have a few days in the 60s and low 70s. So I don't usually sow carrots in fresh compost. Carrots tend to fork and just look really crazy when they're in soil or compost that has too many nutrients. They're really great for poor soil. I even have a lot of success growing them in clay, especially after I've grown other root crops, larger root crops. But my son picked out some short and sweet carrots. They're just burpee carrots. They are an organic seed. And this is what the packaging looks like. So nothing special. We went to HEB. I wanted to get peas. Pea seeds. That was the quickest way to do it, was to grab some while I was at the grocery store. And we grabbed these. He picked these out. There are a 60-day to harvest. You can't tell because I've ripped off the top of it. And I'm not going to thin them. So this is stone-free soil. It does have some wood chips in it. You can see because this is mushroom compost right here. Now this is the area that my blackberries are in. So they also have all of these beans, different types of beans. I believe these are golden wax beans growing here. You can see some other greens kind of popping up. All of the turnips and lettuce. So this is just really just like kind of sowed crazy. There's all different types of seeds. We have turnips, lettuce, beans, all of that. This is what I like to call a filler area, because ultimately what's growing here is this right here. This is my grapevine. It's a muscadine cross vine. And all of these blackberries, which are my son's blackberry plants. So this bed was designed for the blackberry specifically. The grapevine just made a perfect border all the way across as it's starting to fill out. And then all of these plants are coming in, and it just fills it up. I don't feel comfortable having 4 feet of space. This is 2 feet on each side. The blackberries are planted down the center of it. So all of the space was just going to waste. I'm not about that. So this spring I grew a bunch of mammoth dill, and now I'm going to sow these carrots. But I'm going to do it a little different. I see people putting boards down and everything else, and that's cool, and it works for them. But I've actually had a lot of success sowing carrots, and I've done it in a way that's a lot more simple for me. I don't always water them in. Sometimes I do. But I'll wait until the ground's wet and just sprinkle them on the surface of the soil. And sometimes I will even water them in. But I will literally just take some seeds. You can see how small these seeds are. I mean, that's why they're so easily displaced. And I'll just sprinkle them in. When I want to thin carrots, all I do is come out and pick the larger roots that I want to go ahead and eat, or the tops that produce well for smoothies. I use them in soups. I've even made pesto out of it. You just have to be careful because it's a very, very strong cilantro taste, in my opinion. So look how many seeds there are. And I'm just going to sprinkle them on the surface of the soil. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Now this works for me, and I'll do an updated video showing you how it works. I have done a similar video last winter because this is how we sowed all of our carrots, and we grew thousands of carrots. And I'm really excited to kind of sow these because short and sweet's a variety that I've never heard of before. They have little 4-inch roots, which are great. We've grown all sorts of carrots, from oxheart to purple dragon out here, yellows, whites. The new Corota is actually my favorite for hot weather and clay soils. We've grown Paris Market carrots, which are a smaller carrot. We've grown anything that works for clay. And once we figured out kind of what works for us, we've been able to grow literally thousands of carrots during the early spring season. We grow them all throughout winter. So it really works. It was just figuring out what type of carrot works best for our climate, because it does get hot and unpredictable, for our soils. that's something important. Now, I'm not worried about the soil because it's well-worked soil. It's compost. It's not clay soil, but it's open to the clay soil below. This is a good, you can see this is a 2x6. So it contacts the clay soil, and we have plants in here that have grown into the soil. Like, I've grown okra in here and giant mustard, both of which have a pretty good root system. And so when those get pulled out, it breaks up the soil a lot. Plus, it kind of makes the way for everything else. The cool thing about this is I like growing carrots after growing a lot during the spring. So in this area, this is fairly new compost. I installed it this summer. However, so you can kind of do a close-up. You can see how they're just kind of falling everywhere. This kind of keeps and I know it's going to rain some more, so these seeds will get displaced. I'm not worried about that. They stay in the bed, no big deal. But it does prevent them. If you bury the seed and then come in and water it, your seed's going to get pushed down all the way into the soil. It's just going to disappear. However, sprinkling them along the surface like this is going to just prevent them from getting pushed down. Now, I'm not saying that animals won't eat them or the wind won't move them. I'm just saying this works really well for us. And so this is just kind of how I prefer to do things. I've noticed that surface sowing really makes a big difference, kind of makes it easier on us. So now I'm just going to do it like this. And this is just a small section of carrots. This is just what we picked up from the grocery store. I have literally thousands of carrot seeds, and we are going to be growing all kinds of carrots. So you can kind of see some seeds on the surface. And look, there are other seeds starting to sprout there. So you can kind of see the different type of plants I have here. Here's one. Here's a young turnip right here. The purple-ish red roots indicate purple top turnips. And the really, really red roots that almost look like ketchup or blood are bull's blood beets. And then we do have some other small plants and lettuces. Look at these turnips. They're already doing so well. I'm really excited about turnips. They're so easy to grow. When I first started growing root crops, I just had a hard time because I thought growing them in spring would be best. But I'm in southeast Texas, so when everyone else is spring growing their root crops, I'm working on warm weather things. And so during fall, when people in a more northern climate are wrapping up for the winter, I'm sowing all of my winter vegetables and root crops because they do better there. They don't do well in the heat. So if you're in southeast Texas and you're just starting out, winter is a great time to grow. It's one of my favorite seasons to grow through fall and winter. Look at this. Like, all of these are popping up. I just sprinkled these on top too, and then I'm gonna come in and thin them out. I know a lot of people who try to space their roots out perfectly even. I am not that person. I'm all for letting them grow together and just picking out the big ones that I want to go ahead and harvest right then. And realistically, if you really want to, what you can do is the ones that grow the biggest, the fastest, just leave them in there and kind of mark them in some way. That way when they can produce your seed for next year and you can say these grew the biggest and the fastest, that's kind of what you want. It's a great thing about being at home, a home gardener. You can seed save and really pick out the best. If you just save any old seed, you'll find out that your crop is diminishing year after year. The yield is not as good, the size is not as good. So it's really important to kind of figure out what works the best, what grows the best, and grow that. Don't think just because you're in a hot climate you can't grow carrots. There are carrots that grow well in hot climates. They originated in hot climates, not as a vegetable, but as a herbal medicine actually. And so if you find out what kind of soil you have, you're going to be able to say, okay, I have clay soil. These carrots grow best in clay soil. And that's really important to remember. It's made a big difference on sowing carrots. And like I said, surface sowing I think is really great. Now this is pre-wet soil. Like I said, it's been raining a lot, so I don't recommend coming in and sowing carrot seeds and then just blasting it with a water hose, all your carrot seeds are going to get dispersed everywhere. You're not going to know where carrots are going to be popping up at. But if you want to pre-moisten your soil or come out after a light rain, then that's great. And then it's going to be raining all week, so that's going to water our carrots in and keep it nice and moist. And then next week, with the weather being cooler, I may not even have to water them. They probably are just going to pop up on their own. But if I notice the soil starting to get too dry, I'll come out here and water them a little bit. It just gives them a chance to really pop up and establish. And it's so much easier than trying to bring out anything and cover it. Another thing that you can do is just get some, sow your seeds like that and get some fabric or even the stuffing for couches and chairs from like Hobby Lobby or whatever. You can get it from Walmart, you can get it anywhere, and lay it over the top of your garden, and that will keep the seeds from going anywhere. I've even seen people sow directly into that fabric and then the seeds fight to get down to the roots or to the soil. That's totally up to you. What I will tell you is if you use extremely rich compost on large carrots, your carrots are going to come out looking wild. So that's one thing you should know. Carrots are perfect for spent compost. They're perfect for something you've already grown in and the soil's not good enough to grow their stuff. Grow beans or peas or carrots. Now, these beans are well established. They're already flowering. They've been here for almost 40 days now. It's not a good time to come out and start new ones unless you have some kind of protection. We're getting towards the end of October, which means that unpredictable November weather is coming our way. And you never know if it's going to be hot or freezing cold. But what I can say is as these finish up, putting peas in to replace them is a great idea. Peas can handle a frost. I grew peas starting in January last year all the way through April, and it really worked out for me. So this is a great time to kind of start your peas, and bush peas are a great option. If you've never grown bush peas, there are a couple of varieties on Baker's Creek that are really cool. And the great thing about Baker's Creek is if you want to just go in and spend $3 to $4 on a packet or two of seeds, and then there's no shipping fee. So the seeds range. You can get a seed packet for $2 something, or they can be $4 something. It just depends on what kind of seed, how hard it is to grow, everything else. But chances are, if you see seeds, they're inexpensive, and there are a lot of them in the packet. That means they're easy to grow, in my opinion. That's usually from my experience. Look at this. This little kale is actually from last winter. I seeded it, and it never came up. And then it came up in late spring, so it's kind of stunted. But now that the weather's getting cold, it's really taken off. So that's really cool. So if you have a kale that's lasted all summer, ours did, and I cut them out because aphids just got really crazy around them. But this is the Red Russian variety. I highly recommend it for warm weather. It will survive our hot climate and then come back with a vengeance when it starts cooling off. So this means that I got a head start, and once these leaves will get massive, and we're going to be picking kale long before anyone else, which is really cool. And the last thing I want to show you guys is our tomatoes. Now, we did not have a good season for tomatoes. This plant I actually accidentally broke. You can kind of see where I broke it up here. So it's not going to produce a lot. These are really the only tomatoes I've gotten this season because of the drought and me not watering them. And it just got so hot so fast. There was no keeping up. Even with watering several times a week, I just couldn't keep up. So I just stopped trying to. And so these will be the only tomatoes that we get this year. It's not a lot. Super Sweet 100 hybrid. But I am excited to have tomatoes. It is cool to see that the plants are producing anything at all with it being late October. So, well, that's it, guys. I just kind of wanted to come in and show you since I needed to sow carrots. And that was one of the hardest crops for us to establish and grow. And now it's one that we grow literally thousands of. It's such a good crop. We have a whole supply cut up and put into our freezer from last winter that have provided us with carrots all year round. My kids come and they pick them out. They eat them fresh. They're great for storage. I mean, once you start growing your own carrots, really see how easy it is. It makes such a big difference. So I hope this kind of helps you guys out.